Welcome to our deep dive, into media and technology. We've got a whole stack of sources for you today. We've got textbook excerpts, real-world case studies, and we're going to be exploring how all these forces shape our lives, individually and as a society.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me, at least, how technology, often it reflects the anxieties and the values of the society that creates it. So it's not just about solving problems. It's like this mirror, reflecting who we are and what we want to be.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's like how those early humans, they developed stone tools.
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't just for practical reasons. It was like this deeper desire to control their environment,
Right.
to shape the world around them.
Exactly. And it's like today, our obsession with the latest smartphones, the latest social media platform, that speaks volumes about our own values.
Totally. And that actually brings us to a really critical issue, how technology's benefits aren't always evenly distributed. One of our sources dives into this whole concept of technological stratification, which is a fancy way of saying that access to technology and the knowledge that comes with it, it's not equal.
Right. And that makes you wonder if the digital divide, it's not just about who has the newest, coolest gadget,
Right.
but about who gets to participate in shaping the digital future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So the stratification, it takes two forms. You have the obvious digital divide, that gap in access to the technology, but then you also have what they call the knowledge gap,
Right.
which are the differences in people's ability to effectively sort through and process the information that they find online.
So this source, it really emphasized this idea of e-readiness.
Yeah, readiness.
Which basically means how well equipped are you to navigate the digital world. And it makes sense, in today's job market, if you're not digitally fluent, you're going to be at a disadvantage.
Oh, absolutely. And what's so fascinating is how the nature of access is changing. Because while computer ownership, right, is still a factor, the rise of what we call the smartphone-only internet user creates this hidden divide.
So it's not just about being connected. It's about how you're connected.
Right. Exactly. Think about trying to fill out a job application or access these complex online resources on a tiny little screen. It's possible, but it's definitely not ideal.
Right.
And this subtle disadvantage can have real world consequences.
It's like you've got a sports car.
Yeah.
But you can only drive it in first gear. You're mobile, but you're not going to win any races.
That's a great analogy. And think about how the COVID-19 pandemic, it really highlighted the digital divide in education. When schools had to shift to remote learning, it wasn't just about who had a computer, who had internet access. It was about the quality of that access and the ability to engage with those online platforms.
It really shows how technology can both exacerbate and mitigate inequality.
Yes.
Depending on how it's deployed and who has access to it.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder if just providing access is enough, or if we need to think more deeply about, digital literacy and how to equip everyone with the skills to thrive in this digital world.
Yeah, it's not just about giving everyone a toolbox. It's about teaching them how to use the tools.
Right. Exactly.
Now, speaking of tools, one of the sources really got me thinking about our constant need to be connected. And I know I'm guilty of this, checking my phone way too often.
Yeah.
How about you? Do you find yourself constantly checking your phone?
Well, there are studies that show that a significant percentage of people sleep with their phones right next to their bed.
Wow.
It's fascinating. This desire to stay constantly connected, it's become almost like an instinct. But, it does make you wonder about the potential downsides.
It reminds me of that recent trend we've been seeing of celebrities quitting social media.
Oh, yeah.
Even people who seemingly benefit from that constant connection are feeling the strain. Remember when Lizzo left Twitter because of all the negativity?
Yes. And there are other examples, too, Lorde. She described feeling like she had, quote, front row seats to the hellfire of social media. And even someone like Selena Gomez, who has millions of followers and a carefully curated online presence, has talked about the pressure and the anxiety that comes with constantly being online.
It's like they're living in this digital panopticon.
Yeah.
Always being watched, always being judged, always expected to perform.
And, while most of us aren't dealing with celebrity level scrutiny,
Sure.
There is some research suggesting that our own constant connection might be taking a toll on our relationships.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, there was a study on romantic relationships, and they found that while frequent texting can increase feelings of attachment, it can also lead to lower relationship satisfaction
Oh, wow.
compared to voice communication.
But And isn't there a risk of losing something valuable in that constant connection? Like the ability to be present in the moment or to engage in like deeper, more meaningful conversations?
That's a great question. And that's actually something that I want you, the listener, to reflect on. Like, how do your own communication patterns, how do they impact your relationships?
Yeah, that is food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's kind of shift gears a bit and talk about the media landscape itself. It's constantly evolving. I mean, we've gone from the historical impact of newspapers to the rise of radio and television. And of course, now we have this disruptive power of what they call new media.
And it's like each new medium, it doesn't just add to the mix. It reshapes how we consume information and how we interact with the world.
Totally.
I mean, think about how the decline of newspapers combined with the rise of like these fragmented news sources online has raised concerns about, balanced reporting and even the potential for echo chambers.
Yeah. It's like we're trading a shared public square for a collection of, like, private echo chambers, where we only hear voices that reinforce what we already believe.
Exactly. And what's intriguing to me is that despite all of the advancements in digital technology, research suggests that we actually might comprehend information better when reading on paper compared to, like, screens.
Wait, really? I find that so fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially with all this talk about, like, digital textbooks and online learning.
I know, it seems so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But there's growing evidence to support it. Maybe there's something about that tactile experience of, like, reading on paper, the lack of distractions. It allows for deeper processing.
So maybe those old-fashioned books still have a place in our digital world.
It seems so. And as we navigate, this complex media landscape, I think it's important to be aware of how advertising has also evolved.
It's true. It's not just about flashy commercials anymore.
Right.
It's about these carefully crafted messages that are embedded within our social media feeds and just like our online experiences in general.
Precisely. So, like, the rise of, brand ambassadorships and influencer marketing, it's blurred the lines between, like, authentic recommendations and paid endorsements.
Yeah. It's like, those ambassador marketing programs you see on college campuses?
Yeah.
Where students are actually paid to promote products to their peers.
Right.
So it's advertising disguised as, like, word-of-mouth marketing.
Exactly. And that raises all these ethical questions about, like, transparency and authenticity. Like, how do we know when someone's genuinely recommending something versus being paid to represent the brand?
It's getting harder and harder to tell.
It is.
Almost like we need like a built-in BS detector for the digital age just to like decipher what's real and what's marketing.
Maybe we do. And this blurring of lines, it has real implications for how we, consume information and how we make decisions.
Totally. It makes you question like the objectivity of online reviews, recommendations, even news articles.
Yeah.
It's like we need to approach everything with like a healthy dose of skepticism.
And that skepticism, that's a key component of what we call media literacy.
Right.
It's not just about, like, understanding how to use the technology. It's about understanding the forces that are shaping how that technology is used and the messages that it's conveying.
It's like learning to read between the lines, but for the digital world, right?
Exactly. And then when we think about those forces on, like, a global scale, things get even more complex.
You think about globalization, right?
Yes.
How media and technology are connecting the world in ways that we've never seen before.
Right. Think about Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat, where he argued that technology was leveling the global playing field. But from, like, a sociological perspective, things aren't quite so simple.
Yeah.
We have to consider, things like cultural imperialism,
right,
the uneven distribution of benefits, even within nations.
So globalization isn't just about like the spread of technology. It's about the spread of ideas and values.
Yes.
And that can have both positive and negative consequences.
Absolutely. Think about, for instance, the case study of mobile phones in sub-Saharan Africa. On the one hand, they've created economic opportunities.
Right.
They've increased access to information. But on the other hand, they've also exacerbated the digital divide within those countries. And it's also raised concerns about, like, cultural dominance from, outside forces.
It's such a complex issue with no easy answers.
Yeah.
It's like globalization is this double-edged sword capable of both liberating and exploiting.
Precisely. And that complexity is why it's so important to examine these issues through, like, different sociological lenses.
Okay. I'm really interested to hear more about that.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those different perspectives, starting with functionalism.
Okay, so from a functionalist perspective, we would focus on how media and technology contribute to, like, the smooth functioning of society.
Well,
So they play important roles in, entertainment, socialization, the spreading of information.
it's about how these things help society operate effectively.
Exactly. Think about the role of advertising, for example, in supporting the economy,
Right.
or how the media helps to transmit, like, social norms and values.
Right.
Those are all important functions that contribute to societal stability. But, we have to remember that functionalists, they also acknowledge the potential for what they call dysfunctions.
Right, because no system is perfect.
Exactly. Like, think about, remember that narcotizing dysfunction we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah, where we're just bombarded with so much information
Yeah,
that we become, like, desensitized and disengaged.
precisely. Or think about how technology can actually contribute to, like, social isolation, even as it connects us in these other ways.
Yeah, it's like we're more connected than ever, but so many of us feel increasingly alone.
Yeah, it's a key paradox of, the digital age, and it's something that conflict theorists would be particularly interested in exploring.
Because they focus on how technology can reinforce existing inequalities.
Exactly. Conflict theorists would, like, point to the digital divide as a prime example.
Right, where lack of access to technology perpetuates those social and economic disadvantages.
Right, and they'd also scrutinize, like, who controls the media and how that power is used.
It's about who gets to shape the narrative,
Yeah.
right? Who benefits from that information flow, and ultimately who's left behind.
Exactly. So, like, the consolidation of media ownership, where a handful of corporations control these vast swaths of the media landscape, that's a major concern for conflict theorists.
Because it concentrates power and it limits the diversity of viewpoints.
Exactly. And this actually brings us to another interesting point that was raised in one of the sources, this idea of planned obsolescence.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. Planned obsolescence. It sounds kind of ominous.
It is, in a way. It refers to this practice of designing products with, like, a limited lifespan, encouraging consumers to, buy replacements sooner rather than later.
So it's like built-in expiration dates for our gadgets.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to be fair, sometimes that's driven by genuine technological advancements, right?
That's true. But planned obsolescence, it's not always so benign. The source actually gave the example of nylon stockings back in the early 20th century.
Okay.
And apparently they were intentionally made to be less durable
Really?
so that women would have to, like, buy more.
Wow. It's like they engineered a problem just to sell the solution.
Exactly. And it's not just physical products either. Software updates, they can sometimes render older versions incompatible,
Oh, right.
which then forces users to upgrade.
It's like we're on this technological treadmill, constantly running to keep up, but never really getting anywhere.
Very apt analogy. And the source, it highlighted this controversial case study involving Apple. Apparently, they intentionally slowed down older iPhones through software updates.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Which led to accusations of planned obsolescence.
Didn't that lead to a lot of, like, backlash and even lawsuits?
It did. Customers felt, like, tricked into upgrading, and it raised serious ethical questions about, consumer rights and corporate responsibility. Apple eventually settled those lawsuits.
Right.
But, the incident, it definitely left a lasting impact.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how much of what we consider progress is actually driven by, like, genuine innovation versus corporate strategy.
That's such a crucial question to ask as consumers, right? We need to be more aware of these tactics and make, like, informed choices about when to upgrade and when to, resist.
Speaking of influencing consumer choices, we can't overlook the power of advertising in the media landscape.
Absolutely. Advertising is constantly evolving, adapting to new technologies and, consumer behaviors.
Yeah. It's not just about those flashy commercials anymore.
Right.
It's about seamlessly integrating those marketing messages into, like, our social media feeds and just our online experiences in general.
Exactly. Think about how, social media influencers, they recommend products, or how brands, they partner with celebrities or even everyday people to promote their products.
It's become incredibly sophisticated.
It really has.
It makes you question the authenticity of, like, online reviews, recommendations, even news articles.
Absolutely. Media literacy and critical thinking, they are absolutely essential skills for navigating this complex landscape.
So it's not just about, understanding the technology itself.
No.
It's about understanding the forces that shape how that technology is being used and the messages that it's conveying.
Absolutely. And as we've seen throughout this whole deep dive, those forces can be both, like, empowering and problematic, right?
Right.
Technology, it can connect us, it can inform us, it can create opportunities. It can also be used to manipulate, control, and exacerbate inequalities.
It's like a powerful tool that can be used for good or for ill.
A very apt analogy. And ultimately, it's up to us as individuals and as a society to shape how technology is developed, how it's deployed, and how it's regulated. We need to be thoughtful, we need to be critical, and we need to be engaged citizens in this digital age.
So it's not just about being like passive consumers of technology,
No,
but active participants in shaping its impact.
precisely. We need to be asking tough questions, demanding transparency, and, holding those in power accountable.
And perhaps most importantly, we need to be mindful of our own relationship with technology and media.
Absolutely. How much time are we spending online? What kind of content are we consuming? Are we using technology in ways that enhance our lives or detract from them?
It's about taking control of our digital lives rather than letting them control us.
Well said. And it's a conversation that needs to be ongoing, right? The landscape of media and technology, it's constantly evolving, and our understanding of its impacts, it needs to evolve alongside it.
It's like a lifelong learning journey. But instead of textbooks, we have smartphones and social media feeds.
Precisely. And it's a journey worth taking. The more we understand about media and technology, the better equipped we are to, navigate their complexities and harness their potential for good.
It's about empowering ourselves to be informed, critical, and engaged citizens in a world that's increasingly shaped by these powerful forces.
Exactly. And with that in mind, I think it's time to shift our focus a little bit to how various sociological perspectives view media and technology.
Okay, I'm really curious to explore these different lenses. We already touched on functionalism and conflict theory. What about feminist theory? How does that perspective approach these issues?
Okay. Well, feminist theorists would focus on how media often perpetuates, gender stereotypes
Right.
and reinforces patriarchal power structures.
So it's about challenging those dominant narratives
Yes.
and examining how those media representations impact, our understanding of gender roles.
Exactly. They would analyze things like, how women are portrayed in the media, the underrepresentation of women in tech-related fields, and the ways in which technology can be used to control and exploit women.
So it's like looking at the digital world through this gendered lens,
Yeah.
seeing how those power dynamics and inequalities play out in this new space.
Precisely. And within feminist theory, there's this growing field called cyberfeminism,
Okay.
which focuses on the use of technology to challenge those gender norms and, promote equality.
So it's about reclaiming technology as a tool for feminist activism and empowerment.
Exactly. Cyberfeminists, they see the potential of the internet to create spaces for feminist discourse, organizing, and resistance.
That's amazing. But I imagine there are challenges as well.
Oh, of course. Cyberfeminists also acknowledge the dark side of the digital world,
Right.
like the persistence of online harassment, misogyny, and the use of technology to, perpetuate violence against women.
Right. It's a reminder that technology itself isn't inherently good or bad.
Yeah,
It's how we use it and who controls it that determines its impact.
absolutely. And that brings us to, I think, our final sociological perspective, symbolic interactionism.
Which is all about how we create meaning through our interactions, right?
Exactly. So symbolic interactionists, they would examine how we use technology and media to construct our identities, build relationships, and shape our understanding of reality.
So it's like asking, how does technology influence who we are and how we see the world?
Precisely. Think about how we use social media to, present ourselves to the world,
Right.
how we form online communities, and how the media we consume shapes our perceptions of, ourselves and others.
Right.
These are all areas that symbolic interactionists would be really interested in exploring.
It's a very micro level perspective.
Yeah.
But those individual interactions, they can have broader societal implications.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. The ways in which we use social media to construct our identities can contribute to the formation of, social norms and expectations. Or the media we consume that can shape our understanding of important social issues, which then influences our attitudes and behaviors.
It's like those ripples spreading outward from a single drop in the water.
A great analogy. Symbolic interactionism, it helps us to understand those subtle but powerful ways in which media and technology, they shape our social world.
So we've got these four distinct perspectives. We've got functionalism, conflict theory, feminist theory, and symbolic interactionism.
Yeah.
Each of them offering this unique lens through which to view media and technology. It's like having a multifaceted tool for analysis.
Exactly. And the beauty of having multiple perspectives is that they can like complement and challenge each other, which enriches our understanding of these really complex phenomena.
It's about seeing the bigger picture,
Yeah.
recognizing those nuances and the complexities of these powerful forces that shape our world.
Well said. And as we, continue to explore this ever-evolving landscape of media and technology, it's important to keep these diverse perspectives in mind because they provide valuable insights into how these forces, they interact with society and shape our individual experiences.
It's like having this mental toolkit for navigating the digital age.
A toolkit that's constantly expanding as new technologies emerge and as our understanding deepens.
It's a lifelong learning process.
It is.
But it's essential for being informed, critical, and engaged citizens in a world that's increasingly shaped by these powerful forces. It's like we've been handed this incredibly powerful toolkit,
Yeah.
but we haven't really been given the instruction manual.
That's a perfect analogy. And that's really what this whole deep dive has been about, helping you, the listener, understand how to use that toolkit effectively.
We've covered so much, from the historical evolution of technology to the complexities of globalization and, all these different sociological perspectives that can help us make sense of it all.
And it's important to remember that this isn't just some, academic exercise, right?
Right.
These issues, they have real-world implications for every single one of us.
Totally.
Think about how technology shapes your daily life, your relationships, your work, even your access to information.
Yeah, it's easy to get, caught up in the latest gadgets or just that constant stream of online content. But we have to step back and ask those critical questions.
Exactly. Is technology serving you or are you serving it?
Right. Are you using it intentionally? Or is it kind of dictating your choices and your behaviors?
And how can you use, your understanding of these forces to be a more informed citizen, a more conscious consumer, and a more active participant in shaping the digital world?
Yeah, it's about reclaiming our agency in a world that, honestly, often feels increasingly, automated and driven by algorithms.
Yeah. And that brings us to, a final thought that we want to leave you with.
Okay.
As you go about your day, just pay attention to your own interactions with technology and media. Notice those subtle ways that they influence your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors.
Ask yourself if those influences, if they're actually aligned with your values and your goals.
And most importantly, remember that you have the power to choose how you engage with these forces. You can choose to be mindful, critical, and intentional.
You can choose to use technology as a tool for connection, for creativity, and for positive change.
And with that thought, we'll leave you to continue your own exploration of this complex and ever-evolving world. Until next time.
Happy navigating.